Right, welcome everyone to another community hour. We're going to wait and get some people populated here in the Zoom. Adam, I'm loving that background.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always good to see you in here, Aaron. Thanks for joining. I see Michael. Thank you for also joining. We'll get started here in a minute. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time here. My name is Ann Sari. I'm the executive director of the user group. I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank you for joining. If you're by chance not familiar with the Elevate Technology user group, we're a customer-led community. So our priority is bringing together customers who are on the multi-cloud journey, using Dell Technologies to modernize your infrastructure. So really, we connect members through virtual events like this. We're going to talk a lot about multi-cloud today. Also in-person events. We have many events coming up over the next month, so be sure to check out our event calendar, and hopefully we will see you in person soon. We have a great program today, so I'm going to pass it over to David Giesica to kick us off here and be our host with the most as we go through today's community hour program.
Thank you very much, Ann, and
thank you, David.
Panelists. Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up. You got me? All right, fantastic. Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining yet again on the community hour. We have a fantastic program lined up for you. Before we begin, I do want to thank our sponsors for making this possible. Again, Dell Technologies, VMware, and Intel. Thank you very much. So today we are going to continue our conversation about multi-cloud. This is part 2 of our multi-cloud conversation. I have with me my guest host, Adam Little, Senior Manager, Enterprise Security and Compliance, New Belgium Brewing. Adam, it looks like you've got something maybe we could talk about there a little bit. And Ash McCarty, Director, Multicloud Product Management, Dell Technologies. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite back.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ash. It's great to see you again. I think we had you in person not too long ago. And thanks for being such a fantastic supporter of the user group. Adam, you're a director. You help us kind of decide what our content should be. We're having multi-cloud. This is our second conversation on multi-cloud. So why are we having 2 conversations on multi-cloud? What's so important about multi-cloud, and what's going on, and what's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of customers, it's a challenging thing, right? They may or may not be in a couple different public clouds, might have some private cloud workloads, and really there's a lot of different pieces there of, are those workloads in the right places? Are they running with the right features, the right skill sets that they need? And how do we make that easier for the customer, right? I think everyone, it's a common thread in IT, right, is doing more with less people, less resources, all of that, right? So really understanding what is best for your business and where to run those workloads is one of those ever-changing, tough to answer questions. So I think it's important for us to highlight how we can get there, how we can do things easier, learn from each other, and what can Dell do to help us get there with their products and solutions. So maybe Ash can weigh in a little bit more on what Dell's plan is for multi-cloud and how we get there and how things are going to be easier, right?
Yeah, Adam, I don't think your problems are unique to you. I have the opportunity, not only talk to the Elevate user group members, but frequently talk to a lot of customers, get a lot of feedback. And I will say universally, customers really do love public cloud, and it's very simple to use. It's very easy to jump right in, and they love being able to spin up infrastructure on demand. And it's actually very important right now because you'll see a lot of the public cloud providers are kind of moving at breakneck speed, constantly innovating, and that really aligns to how customers are rapidly kind of growing their business. But I will say, as customers start to expand to one or more public clouds, and most customers I talk to are in two or more even. That's where it starts to really get complicated. And you're right. It's because more often than not, customers kind of fall into multi-cloud, and so they do it kind of a multi-cloud by default versus kind of how Dell's positioning is multi-cloud by design. And that's when they don't really have a definitive strategy, and it kind of presents a whole host of challenges for effectively managing and scaling their people and their business. And that's what we're trying to help with.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say we're only in one public cloud, but I feel like we were in such a rush to get there because we needed it for specific applications and services that we probably didn't do all of our due diligence on were things right sized. How are we going to do test dev? How are we going to put security around it? So I think there's just some pieces that we kind of had to backtrack a little bit. And I feel like we're in a better spot, but I can't even imagine trying to do that across multiple public clouds and say, hey, we apply the same procedures, the same policies, the same controls to all those different environments. So anything that would help customers in that space, again, right, I'm all for saving time and making it easier to manage.
Resonate with you because I think this is kind of the top five, I think, that we hear from customers. That they have difficulty with unplanned costs. They don't really have a way, especially when you're talking about multiple clouds, they don't have a really way to manage it consistently, different services, features. It's not always easy because I think a lot of folks I talk to are have been doing and operating a specific way, either virtualized or starting in the container space and jumping into the public cloud and some of the new services has been challenging. How have you been running your business, and how, as you kind of begin to adopt the cloud, which of these kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely some of the challenges I would say was when we were first starting out, we were like, okay, we could put X amount of workloads in there, right? And this will be that containerized approach of we're just going to have a couple services that we really need in that space. And then that's kind of gotten more and more complex over time of like, we need these other layers in there. We need some data reporting. Hey, we're doing this new thing, maybe it's AI related, maybe it's, data classification related. Where we don't have some of the features or we need some of the features. So then we have to push more data there. So I think that's really turns into the top tier one there of unpredictable costs. We've gotten to the point where as our business is scaling and growing, we're now in that situation where it's like, boy, wouldn't it be really nice if we could run those test dev workloads on-prem instead of in the cloud? Because we want to be able to have that parity, but at the same time, it just costs so much more to spin it up there and do that testing there. But the business is saying, hey, we want it with the same features and applications that we're used to of where that's deployed. So I think now we kind of stepping back, we need more of like a cloud governance policy of like, hey, this is why some workloads will go there and some won't. The rest, we have plenty of on-premise infrastructure because we're in manufacturing. There's really no reason we couldn't run that stuff there. So I think for us, a lot of this is just, again, not really having that exact plan in place, or you're growing so fast that it was impossible to stick to your plan. And so I think that any tool that could help us move that back into the way we want to run it will be super helpful. And as far as skill gaps, I think we're fortunate enough that we're only in one public cloud in Azure. So I think our team has got a decent skill set there, but I could totally envision how if we made an M&A tomorrow that was all in AWS, that would be a challenge, or it was all in GCP, that would be a challenge for us. We don't have those skill sets. So, anything that could help there would certainly be appreciated.
And Adam, you guys are just in Azure, but Ash, I've talked to other customers who they've got their group or the BU who likes Azure, and the group that likes GCP, and the group that likes AWS, so that's not unheard of either, right?
Yeah, I think Adam hit on one good one with M&As, but just even commonly what we come across is I talked to a customer the other day that had 4 different clouds, and we're like, well, how's that work? And it's because even regionally, certain services and availability zones are not always located everywhere. So they had sites in Asia, they had sites in Europe, sites in the US. So they might have standardized in the US, but in EMEA they have specific different cloud, and they ended up having 4 just because of regionally. And so that does provide a host of challenges that customers have to navigate and work through.
And
Yeah,
then,
that's another good point.
so how did this happen? Is this because it was just so easy to go out into cloud, or and then all of a sudden you get a bill and you say, wow, that monthly bill could buy me a lot of infrastructure? Like why are we focusing on this now? Has it just gotten so big and so complex?
Well, I think again, I think really what we call multi-cloud by default is a behavior we saw, and I don't blame anyone for getting into the scenario. Is a lot of times when customers were rapidly scaling their businesses, or they had a new acquisition, or they needed some infrastructure. I mean, particularly during 2020, 2021, when we had a slowdown of infrastructure buying, and then a huge peak of demand afterwards, and no one could get their hands on any equipment. Customers need to continue to run their business, so a lot of them just said, I have to put my workloads wherever, as somewhere fast and wherever I can do to continue my business operations. And so they kind of just, let me spin up some services here. Oh gosh, that's really expensive. Let me spin up some here. And next thing you know, they had workloads and data all over the place, and so that a lot of them are trying to unravel that and put some semblance of control around it. And that's where we think Dell can really help.
I was going to say, from a customer perspective, it definitely feels like, I mean, again, we're only in one public cloud, but we get it, right? You've worked with buying things from various vendors before. There's always incentives to get you in, right? There's always preferred pricing for the first 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever you negotiate. But then it's like, oh, okay, year 4, year 6, whatever that is that you're out of that contract, the cost double, right? Like, so sometimes that happens, and it's they're aware that at that moment, right, your infrastructure is running in that cloud. It's going to be prohibitive for your business to pivot and try to take it out of there. So, I'm not saying that's anything new or anything that people haven't been dealing with forever, but as somebody who's trying to do the best for your business, right, you're trying to put yourself in the best position for success to say, hey, if we need to pivot to moving this stuff back on-prem or moving it to a different public cloud, because for some reason that makes more sense, we either have better services, better pricing, whatever that would be, right? You want to be in that, that magical position where you can do that if you can for your business.
Yeah, keep your options open, keep the flexibility, and be able to have options without almost a lift and shift, so to speak, or without
Right.
a really orthogonal move.
And I
So
do feel like the more products that are in that space that enable that, the more honest it'll make some of those providers on pricing and stuff like that too. So as a whole, I think it's, proven year over year in all different facets of business that competition's good, right? So that it will drive costs down and make things a little more advantageous for the customer, put them in a better light.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ash, how do you shift the thinking, or how do you help shift the thinking from default to design? Like what can you share there? Or do you have a framework on how to think about it, or how Dell's thinking about it?
Yeah, so that's a great segue, because I really want to hit home how Dell's approach to delivering multi-cloud by design. And before I dive into it, I think we have kind of 3 different, when we talk to customers, they really kind of fall into 3 different kind of use cases or categories. And I think the first one is, there's customers that are already heavily using the public cloud. There's a set of customers who are trying to bridge between public and private cloud. They're running infrastructure on-prem. They're starting to get into the public cloud. And then there are customers who are redefining their entire multi-cloud strategy. And those are those customers who, like, are in those scenarios where they kind of backed into it. So really what we're trying to do is help customers by meeting them wherever they are in this journey. And the first piece of this strategy, the first pillar of the strategy, is our ground to cloud strategy. And that is, we're essentially taking our Dell software and making it available making it available in the public cloud. We did this first. We've had our data protection software in the public cloud for a while, and now we've introduced our storage software. So now we've actually branded this and called this Apex Storage for Public Cloud. And so this really, what this enables is that same software you're used to running on prem, you can now run in the public cloud. And this gives customers kind of that consistency of management and as well as data mobility between on-prem and the cloud. So it really kind of helps customers with that kind of seamless operational experience. The second piece to this strategy is what we call cloud to ground. And this is where we're connecting customers' multi-cloud experiences by bringing those cloud stacks on-prem. And think of these as, and I'd like to talk about this a lot more, but we'll talk about the turnkey Apex Cloud platforms, which we're delivering, and it kind of provides a level of integration with each of these cloud stacks. And the goal is really to provide that same level of agility that customers have come to expect from the public cloud, but delivering that operational model on-prem. And I think the last piece of this strategy is we announced this at DTW is the Dell Apex Navigator. So think of the Apex Navigator as providing customers a multi-cloud, management operations at scale through a unified experience. So that same Apex storage for public cloud that we are enabling, the Apex Navigator is your way to manage that. So you'll deploy the software in the cloud. You can secure it with security protocols and capabilities. You can manage it, update it, and then you can actually orchestrate data mobility all through this same interface. So extremely powerful, and that's kind of how we're delivering our multi-cloud by design strategy to kind of solve many of the challenges we kind of just talked about.
So Ash, would the ground to cloud help the customers? Like, would it help Adam's team if they're used to certain storage software or whatever? How would they use that?
Yes, I think a lot of there's two areas that this could be helpful. One thing is today, when many customers are moving applications, workloads up to the public cloud, it does require some level of refactoring, some level of design changes, especially if they're running it on-prem in a hypervisor or in a format that's not natively available in the cloud of their choice, or especially if they're trying to desire a cloud that has specific services and they need to kind of refactor that. So that's one use case where you can deploy, say our block storage that you're running on-prem. You already have the application running, an expected level of performance, capabilities. You know the features, you know the functionalities. Your team is trained on it and executing it daily. You can now deploy that same software in AWS or Azure and soon GCP. And so now, not only can you move those applications and workload and that data up to the cloud, is now running on the same infrastructure you're running on-prem. So kind of skill set minimizes the skill set, hurdles. And then also, it's the same software running across public clouds. So regardless of the underlying, public cloud service, it's running across all of those. So it really simplifies a lot of that. And then the second part of this is, there's a lot of different use cases for mobility of data. Some customers are moving data up to backup archive. Some customers have to repatriate some applications, sometimes due to compliance reasons or security or economics. So having the ability to kind of seamlessly move that data natively integrated into this Apex Navigator management framework allows just an easier way for customers to manipulate and ensure that they have the proper control of their data, regardless of where it lands.
That's really helpful, and I think it helps kind of frame how to think about it for customers. Adam, we lost you for a second. I hope you heard everything. Do you want to weigh in on anything there, or we can keep moving forward?
Yeah, no, I did hear everything. Yeah, I think that's super powerful to understand without that groundwork, right? That common platform to be able to move from different platforms to different platforms, cloud platforms. How can you easily say you're ready to do that, right? If the business says to you, hey, we need to pivot, we need to move this into here. I think there's a lot of folks that are stuck in that situation where it's like, how could I take my workloads from one public cloud to another public cloud to on-prem to public cloud, vice versa? without some sort of a massive project or some sort of massive refactoring of all those applications. So anything that's going to enable that is going to be great for the customer to be able to pivot from different sites. And then that common recovery and build for the platform on software that you're used to using, right, with Dell, I think it's just huge for customers. There's going to be a lot of folks, I think, that are interested in this, because there's a lot of folks right now that I think are like, how do I solve this challenge, right? So I think this is a good first step for a lot of those customers to be like, hey, there are options, there are things I can leverage to have proven help from companies that I trust, like Dell.
So Ash, can you talk a little bit more about the right-hand side of your slide?
Sure, I would absolutely love to. So the right-hand side is, I guess I'd like to spend a little bit of time going a little deeper, because this is a real important, it's all part of our strategy, but this is a real critical piece that I think as customers, as we talked about customers and some of the key reasons they adopt the public cloud, is that more than ever customers have less, I think Adam hit it around the head, said are expected to do more with less. And so they're looking for that same simplicity of the public cloud and deploying and managing their infrastructure. And I know many of our Elevate user group members are very familiar and users of VxRail, and VxRail was tremendously successful because we were able to deliver that same level of simplicity by providing a turnkey platform, deeply integrated and co-engineered with VMware. With this new family of Apex Cloud platforms, which is the part of our cloud to ground strategy, we're delivering that same simplicity, but just like VxRail, but now providing customer a choice of ecosystem that they deploy on premises. And so first, we've partnered with Red Hat, Microsoft, and of course, we're doing it again with VMware. And we're going to provide that full stack integration with each platform. And you can see at the bottom there, we talk about the common building blocks. So we've really architected these platforms to be built on common building blocks. I talked to a lot of customers and talk about the importance of this, but really it breaks down this way. And we've essentially designed these platforms to provide both vertical integration, right? Integration with Red Hat, integration with Microsoft and VMware. But by standardizing on these building blocks, you can think about this as creating a consistent operational experience across all ecosystems. And there's three key parts to this that I'll kind of unpack quickly. Is on the left is the Apex Cloud Platform Foundation software. This is our market leading Dell IP that many of our customers are familiar with. It delivers the automated management, orchestration, and we have a proven success already with Rail. The next part of this is on the right-hand side, and this is the other part of the building block, which is taking our open ecosystem enterprise class software-defined storage, and that delivers unmatched performance, linear scalability, very high resiliency. And then the last piece in the middle is this is all built on our next generation powered systems. So this is really how we are marrying the vertical integration with each partner and the co-engineering we do with them, but with horizontal consistency and standardization across the portfolio, such that customers have those consistent operations, regardless of the ecosystem that they're investing in.
So, I mean, immediately here, it springs to mind all sorts of ideas like, oh my gosh, look at my GCP. Well, sorry, bad idea there. But look at this bill for Azure. I love paying Azure all this money, but boy, would that be good to have my own infrastructure. I could buy a lot of VxRail for that. Now they don't have to make that decision, or I'm assuming they don't have to make that decision, right? They could actually say, oh, maybe, some of these workloads I could put on-prem and they would actually behave better because of X, Y, and Z. But I don't have to retrain anybody or refactor any of the software. Is that a way to think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think many customers, as a multi-cloud strategy that they've adopted, they want to mirror their investments wherever they can in the cloud and on-prem. And so that's why bringing some of these cloud stacks down to on-prem and providing that same operational model is the key objective here. And that's really kind of a few of the problems that this solves is For instance, the Apex platform for Microsoft is going to allow you to run Azure services on-prem. But again, if you're heavily invested in let's say a Red Hat as well, or other stacks in the future, it allows that open ecosystem allows you to have and deploy the ACP for Microsoft Azure or our Apex Cloud platform for Red Hat side by side, managed the same exact way, even though they're different ecosystems, with the same exact services and capabilities exposed. So I think it's the feedback from customers has been, hey, this is exactly what we've been looking for, and it really is going to help them deliver the same kind of automated outcomes on-prem that they have in the cloud, and then further allow them to spend less time managing infrastructure, worrying about updates, applying patches, and doing deployments and management, and more times, focusing on some of those business critical tasks to really drive forward progress in their day-to-day business operations.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd probably add there that, I think often we get tasked with, okay, let's say you do have a couple different things. You have some stuff in the public cloud, you have some Red Hat, you have some VMware, you have what have you. The business may ask you, hey, what do we need? What's a lifecycle refresh look like? Is that going to last the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Which one of these environments are we going to need to grow? And you may not always have those answers, but the answer could be, hey, this platform can let us grow any part of those verticals depending on what we need. So I think that just kind of opens doors for that planning for the, hard to plan. And then I think that you touched on some good points there, Ashley. I think a lot of people went to cloud because it was speed of delivery of the platform, right? You can get it turnkey, turn over very quick, get your application set up and go. Where I think that that's really about offering that same type of delivery with this solution is that, you can take this, deploy it on-prem, you can move it up into the cloud with different workloads. You can give your team a similar set of tools and skills that are easier for them to use. So, ease of management is better, planning is easier, right? It really is checking a lot of those boxes for the customers with the challenges that we hear from the user group.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So that's kind of the baseline strategy, Ash. We've got the ACP, Apex Cloud platforms. It's leveraging the great experience that you've helped develop with VxRail. Certainly the VxRail manager, kind of is that a way to think about that's the engine inside that helps this delivery?
Yeah, so our Apex Cloud Platform Manager is essentially, it's the same thing. We're using building on that IP that we developed with VxRail. I mean, anyone that's familiar with VxRail, it would be very the left side of this and some of the capabilities we've exposed would be very familiar, right? And so that's the objective is to integrate that management and this value add into each of the partners' control planes, like into the web console, into Windows Admin Center, into vCenter, where customers currently do their day-to-day operations and how they manage the rest of their infrastructure. But the idea is, even though each of those are different management control interfaces for each of those different partners, the same operations, the same way you lifecycle the full stack with Red Hat will be the same as you do with Microsoft, the same as you do with VMware. So if you're challenged with resources or concerned with skill sets, it really simplifies how you manage the infrastructure. It's tremendously powerful, regardless if you're in one ecosystem or scaling across many.
Yeah. So this is pretty neat. Now, I think last time when we talked to Kenny, we were just about to launch the ACP for Azure. So that's been out now, and that was the first flavor of the ACP. So that's the Azure flavor, and I think today we're launching the Red Hat flavor as well. I believe there's a LinkedIn Live at 2:30 Eastern that is going to formalize that whole launch. So that'll be neat to hear about. So basically, by the end of today, Elevate members, they're used to VMware with VxRail. So they have that VMware solve right now. If they want to put their VMware workloads on-prem, it's the VxRail they know and love. But now they've also got, if someone like Adam, if he had a bigger Azure presence, he's familiar with VxRail. but if he needed to move some of that Azure workload to on-prem, he could look at ACP for Azure.
Yeah, and so like you said, I'm super excited because we actually announced and launched the Apex Cloud platform for Azure. It's now available shipping. It launched at the end of last month, and like you said, is the ACP for Red Hat is, I feel like a proud parent, like celebrating and gloating about all of my kids, but the Red Hat platform, Red Hat OpenShift platform, actually it launched last week, and so we're doing a big event today, as you said. The unique capabilities of this platform to kind of highlight, because again, even though there's consistency of operations, there's obviously some unique differentiators. So with that, I'll hit on it quickly for both platforms. With the Apex Cloud platform for Microsoft Azure, this platform runs Azure Stack HCI, and it really pairs well with bringing the simplicity of Azure operations on-prem. And if I had to highlight just like finger roll 2 or 3 key differentiators, I say number one is at the very bottom, you'll see it says first offer for the Premier solution. So what does that actually mean? So Microsoft has 2 different categories of integration with Azure Stack HCI. They introduced a 3rd category, which is kind of the highest bar of capabilities and support, and they call that their Premier solutions. This platform, and with Dell, is the first and only offer of its kind in that category. I think the other piece of this is in the same vein of VxRail and what we did with VMware. This platform is truly co-engineered with Microsoft, and we're delivering new innovative technology. Today it's with Storage Spaces Direct, but we're actively working with Microsoft to evaluate additional storage options in the future. So that's kind of some unique things about this platform. On the OpenShift side, whoops, there we go. On the OpenShift side, we're also pretty excited because our goal with this platform is we know how many customers are on their journey to transform their data centers to kind of DevOps operating environment with containers, and we want to transform how they manage their infrastructure, how they deploy it, how they run container orchestration. And the way we've been able to do this is kind of threefold. Is one, first, this platform runs OpenShift bare metal, meaning it not only provides top tier performance, but also helps customers really efficiently manage their costs and eliminates some of the overhead with running containers on top of a virtual machine. And then there's some really cool numbers at the bottom there, the 90% faster upgrades and 90% faster deployment. This isn't something we made up. This is actually internal testing, and some of the things that customers tell us about deploying a platform and deploying container environments is that it's complicated and it's something new and it's daunting. And so by being able to simplify those upgrades and those deployments so significantly, we're pretty excited about what this platform is able to achieve. So I think these are kind of a couple of key takeaways, and I definitely advise if you have access to that LinkedIn session today, joining that, because we'll go into depth about all the cool innovative features we're announcing on these platforms.
Yeah, this is great. Adam, one of the things that just jumps to my head, top of mind, particularly with the conversations you and I have had over the past couple of years, is what a tool for acquisitions. If you're out there doing M&A, this seems like a really great option to be able to leverage.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like often in an M&A situation, it goes one of 2 ways. I feel like at a super high level, right? One, it's a business that has very similar applications that you do, and the integration will be easier. I mean, not easy, it's never easy, but or they have a completely dissimilar, disparate design, right? Where they have no VMware, they run all Linux servers. I'm arbitrarily picking things that are counterintuitive to what our business is. And it's just like, where do we start, right? Like, how do I get them into a platform that my team knows how to support, that my team feels comfortable supporting, and get them on modern hardware, right? Even whenever we acquired Bell's, their hardware was a little bit behind from what we used, and they were obviously ecstatic to bring it up to date with VxRail and things like that. But really just understanding within your business, right? We have a standard that we try to uphold for our infrastructure and what we use and what services we use. So we need tools that enable that, right? And I think this is a great opportunity. This is a great tool to be like, if you standardize on this tomorrow, right, it can clearly grow for where your business might need to go, whether that is in public cloud, whether that is in bare metal containers, whether that is all these different avenues. So it makes your goal easier in that M&A situation to say, hey, we can get you integrated faster and better supported and better aligned with where our business is going. So I think that for a lot of customers, that is, ticking a lot of those boxes and really helping them plan for the future. Because I think a lot of us are, it's tough, right? COVID was tough to get hardware on premise. So probably Ash brought it up earlier. Probably a lot of people went to cloud workloads there. And then a lot of people felt, a little stressed or a little spread thin when they didn't understand how best to support that. So I think this is a good opportunity to say, hey, as you reset and think about where your business is going, does this fit? Is this a good choice for you? And I think for a lot of customers, it will be.
Yeah, it's going to be really neat to watch and listen, Ash. Congratulations. This is really cool stuff. Talking with Elevate members and other customers, I think there's an awful lot of VxRail customers out there who love VxRail for the simplicity, for the just knowing that it's going to work. I don't know how many hours you guys put into all the testing for for all the upgrades and the firmware compatibility and everything, but I imagine all of that is also mirrored in these other platforms. Is that correct?
Yep, and I know the number because we measured it and had to prove it to announce it. It's about 800,000 hours, and that you'd be like, if you do the math, like there's no way to be. A lot of that is a combination of the team doing it, our partner working with our partners VMware, and then automating it. But you're spot on. I mean, the same model that we're you're seeing, we have a recipe for success with VxRail. We have thousands of a tremendous customer base. We have thousands of satisfied and happy customers. And so that's a recipe we're going to continue with Apex Cloud platforms. And while we're talking about VxRail, I think it's a great point because we didn't talk about the Apex Cloud platform for VMware, but we did announce it at DTW. And and while these two are launched, this one, the Apex Cloud platform, will launch early next year. But I know customers have asked me and said, "Hey, what does it mean for the future of VxRail?" And like I said, with all those thousands of customers, this is a complementary offer to VxRail. Like we discussed earlier, VxRail will continue to be, where we deliver that deeply integrated experience and co-engineering with VMware, specifically with vSAN and VCF. There's no equal to it today, and many of our customers are continuing to invest heavily in VxRail, and that's where Dell is going to continue to invest as well. Really, what the ACPs do is complement VxRail. It uses the same underlying architecture, and we'll continue to offer that and provide customers that choice of flexibility. Just like today, you can choose to run vSphere on the ACPs with Enterprise Dell SDS, and that fits nicely into our common build blocks, or you can continue to run VxRail with vSAN and VCF on VxRail. So it really comes down to choice and flexibility.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting to watch. I think it helps also, this whole, Adam, you were talking about Cloud Smart. It used to be Cloud First, and now it's Cloud Smart. Or it should be Cloud Smart. I love that concept.
Yeah, our parent company was in that boat of Cloud First, and it was, I think, back to Ash's conversation, right? Cloud by default, cloud by design. I think it's really, most customers are settling into cloud where it makes sense, right? If it's the right workload, if it's the right features, and you need it to be in a public cloud for those features, great, let's get it there, right? The challenge then becomes, for us at least, I mean, again, we're only in one public cloud, but I can only imagine how this is multiplied when you're in many public clouds. But like, how do you deliver that same level of recovery, that same level of redundancy, that same level of scalability across those public clouds and on premise? So I think this is, a great idea to stitch it all together and help customers there really influence that decision of cloud where it makes sense and for the services you need.
I think that can be a few, well, certainly it's always going to be conversations that we'll have when we get together at Elevate meetings. You know, it becomes part of the people process conversations, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think? Go ahead, Ash.
I was gonna say, I was gonna expound on what Adam said. He's spot on. I mean, I think it's challenging. A lot of customers find it challenging to say, hey, you know, where should I place these workloads? And it's sometimes a hard decision because, you know, oftentimes, and Adam hit on it earlier as well, is once you put a workload somewhere, you're, in a lot of cases, you're stuck. So that, you know, many customers are taking kind of a cloud first approach, and we are trying to shift that mindset to a cloud smart approach. You know, the message being is, at least from our perspective, if Dell can provide that same, the same reasons customers are choosing public cloud, that same simplicity, that agility, you know, the scalability of the public cloud, but we can deliver it on-prem, and we can also extend into the cloud while providing kind of consistent operations everywhere. It's a lofty goal. But as you heard Jeff Clark at DTW this year, we are making it real, and we're demonstrating that by some of these announcements, right? Two platforms out of 3 so far, continue to innovate. And so I think the ultimate goal is, when I talk to customers and share with them what we're doing and how we're doing it, the best outcome I can hear is, hey, you're solving all my problems, you're making my life easier. How can you go faster? And so so far, like I said, the reception has been great, and I'm glad to hear it's resonating with folks.
I think you touched on it a little bit there, but like, there's a reason other companies aren't doing it. It's not easy, right? It's going to be a process to get there. You need those relationships. You need the tier 1 partnerships, right, with big cloud providers and things like that. So I don't know. I'm very excited to see where it goes. I think it's very relevant for us, and like I said, we probably are probably on the lower end of a big use case for it, but we are starting to be tasked with different things now as we look at future looking technologies of, should we be in this public cloud for those services, or we're starting to turn these things up. We need some of these database services that aren't available here. We want to run stuff there. So I know that's inevitably going to happen internally with our own business, let alone what would happen if we made an M&A and they're in a completely different public cloud. So I think it's very forward looking on for a lot of customers to consider a platform like this.
It's gonna be great to watch and great to see.
Yep.
We're approaching time, guys, and just before we wrap, I do want to remind the folks, if you have a question, now's a great time to shoot it to us. You can use Q&A, you can use the chat. And while we're waiting for that, is there anything else? We talked on it a little bit earlier. I want to come back to your thoughts on refactoring, Adam. People talk about cloud native and, let's just go cloud first and move everything to the cloud. It reminds me of the meme, like one does not simply deploy Kubernetes.
Yeah.
One does not simply refactor your software.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point about containers, right? And I think Ash brought it up too. I think a lot of people have been hesitant to start with containers because it is something that needs planned out. It is difficult to life cycle. It is not, I mean, there's probably a lot of administrators and folks on this call that are used to using things like, vSphere to make things easy, to make data protection, all those different pieces, or the different Azure tools. There's a lot of stuff in AWS that can do that too. But the challenge then becomes, as a company, how do I ensure that, site recovery zones are set up correctly? How do I ensure data backups are set up correctly? How do I actually replicate that? I mean, great, I have backups of that database, but like, how would I recover that if I can't just say, hey, it's not in a container that I can easily stand up on-prem. I have to try to fail it to a different zone in Azure, or worst case scenario, you need to fail it to another cloud provider that you're not ready with, right? So that, for me, it's really become, even with our team, as they're getting very used to using Azure, it is now taking a step back and going, all right, back to the basics. How do we do some of these other things that we've been used to doing, right? It's not as easy to spin up test dev environments, or maybe it is easier, but it's not in a format that we're used to. So I think that there is a big people and process curve of, this immediate sprawl into some public clouds and private cloud and private data centers that has made it tough for folks to get back to basics and understand how do we do that, and how could we recover that application without a lengthy refactoring process, back to your question. So I think tools like this are really going to help enable a lot of that with that common groundwork, the Dell software you're used to using, right? At least the storage layer.
Ash, have you had similar conversations with customers about refactoring, like particularly, software that is mission critical that's been running for a decade or more?
Yeah, and I think in some of those cases, customers have relegated the fact that some of those workloads there's probably two categories. There's categories that it's too much investment. They are legacy workloads, which are too much investment to go refactor. And then there's, hey, how do we have a strategy of picking which workloads we want to refactor and take the resource to do it? And then how do we pivot to a strategy that says all new workloads start out natively as container native? It's much like the cloud. It's a new offering, even newer for most customers, because many customers have cloud and not yet have adopted a container strategy. Again, kind of the common themes here is many customers tend to lean on existing infrastructure by putting containers into virtual environments, and that does work, and there's no harm against that. It might not always be the long-term best model if you're trying to shift your business to a container first model and DevOps approach to how you manage that. So I think there's a couple areas that we're trying to help here. Some that I can talk to, some that obviously I can't. But one of them is obviously this platform that's on the screen right now. Abstracting some of the complexity. While we can't take away the full part of the abstraction of the replatforming yet, we can deliver infrastructure that is optimized for container platforms, and that's what this ACP for Red Hat OpenShift helps deliver. Another piece to it is as once customers start to adopt their container strategy and they start to scale, management across container platforms and container models, it becomes challenging. And so there's a piece to the Apex Navigator that we also announced, that we talked about it in framing of managing our block and our file and our data protection in the public cloud. There's another piece to it where we're extending it to manage Kubernetes environments. So if you're having Kubernetes on different Dell storage on-prem or in the cloud, you'll be able to have kind of that unified management layer of Kubernetes. So I think that's the first area we're really trying to help customers just is how they manage those environments, how they deploy them. And I think there's some really cool and innovative technology we're working on both with our partners and inside of Dell to kind of simplify a lot of the other areas and challenges customers are faced with, securing their Kubernetes environments, deploying applications, managing their storage. And so while I can't talk about it all today, I'm really excited as things unfold to share with the user group.
That's great, Ash. So we will have to have you back then. You're giving us good reason. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Ash. This is really, really fantastic. Good information. Congratulations as well. And thanks again for your support. Adam, thank you for co-hosting with me today.
Sure.
Always fantastic conversations. And I'm sure we're going to come back to, probably more refactoring, probably more on the process and how do you drive a cloud smart, process. I can imagine that's going to be future conversations. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Before I hand it to Ann, thank you once again to our sponsors, Dell, VMware, and Intel for making this happen or allowing this to happen. Ann, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks again for everyone attending today's session. I've been sharing a lot of links in the chat. I know that, but just wanted to call out a few things. Annual member survey. We would love your feedback. Please share with us your thoughts, and feedback will help us plan next year's programming and events. So please take the time to fill out that survey. You also have a chance to win a Nintendo Switch. So please check that out. Also, another survey link in there for a quick survey on today's session. So we thank you for your time today and participating, and we hope everyone has a great afternoon, and we will see you at our next event soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.